Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining tonight's session, HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and I'll be facilitating this session. The title we are looking at tonight is Developing and Applying Competency Frameworks in HR. Developing and Applying Competency Frameworks in HR. Again, my name is Oluyemi Adeosun. All right, so let's just move straight ahead, all right, to our introduction. And we'll be looking at what is even competency and what are competency frameworks. I'll be discussing around, how to apply them on our role as HR professionals. And competency frameworks are tools used in HR and they can be, defined along certain lines. So competencies include skills, knowledge, attitude, and behaviors. So if you want to break down competency, you can, break them down and say, okay, it can be defined as what? Knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors. And you can now look at each of these sub-definition in itself. So knowledge is understanding of, for example, facts, information, concepts, and principles relevant to a particular job. Knowledge competencies may involve technical expertise, industry-specific knowledge, or knowledge of organizational processes. So you will see that even knowledge in itself is multifold. Then skills is the ability to perform specific tasks or activities. All right, so typically you need knowledge to be able to have skills and deploy or apply skills. Skills can also be categorized into technical or soft. Technical skills include, for example, proficiency in using softwares, all right, operating machinery. Okay, soft skills could include communication, listening, leadership, problem solving, and so on and so forth. So the third subcategory, which is abilities. Abilities can be referred to as something that is innate, okay, and it can also be an acquired capacity that enables individuals to perform certain tasks or functions very effectively. So abilities may include cognitive, and some examples of cognitive flexibility abilities include mental, creativity, critical thinking, and so on and so forth. Physical attributes, on the other hand, could be, dexterity, strength, people being, for example, athletic, and so on and so forth. Interpersonal abilities could include empathy or teamwork. And why some of these things can be innate is that you see that even from childhood, some children display some of these skills with almost effortlessly, and why some people have to really, so to speak, apply themselves to learning, applying self-control over time, or even facing discipline to condition themselves to behave in certain ways. The fourth perspective to competencies are behavior, and behaviors are observed action, attitude, and patterns of conduct exhibited by individuals in the workplace. Behaviors encompass aspects such as work ethic, okay, professionalism, adaptability, and interpersonal relations. Sometimes all these four concepts, knowledge, skills, abilities, and behavior, sometimes can be interwoven. And sometimes without one, it may not be effective with the other one. Now, when we talk about competency framework, what are the things we can apply them to? For example, a good competency framework will even help us in defining, for example, a job description, because we'll be able to clearly articulate the person's specification. So when we are interviewing a potential candidate, even before the interview, when we are reviewing a CV, we are typically reviewing a CV vis-a-vis a competency framework. In other words, the competency framework is like the baseline, it's like the benchmark, it's like the standard vis-a-vis. So we can say if a CV matches 70% of our competency framework, let us invite that candidate. Or if the CV matches 80%, or 90%, then so that when the recruiter is shortlisting, it's not based on gut feeling. It's not based on I like this person or I dislike this person. Now, just to dwell a little on this, you will agree with me that it's almost impossible in a competency framework to find tribe or religion or even age as a parameter. It's very difficult to find those kind of things there because those things in themselves or things like gender don't get the job done. Just to expatiate with respect to how competency framework can be used for recruitment and selection. Then things like performance management. When we say somebody is performing, is a high performer, hypo, is average performer, is performing below par. It is also because we are comparing, as it were, the person's outcome and output vis-a-vis the key performance indicators, which is hinged on the competency framework. Based on the competency framework, we will have predetermined that people are certain calibers, people of certain strength, people of certain capacity should be able to deliver certain types of output measured in certain ways through our KPIs. Learning and development. Typically, when we are doing learning and development, we do what we call a gap analysis. Now, when we do a gap analysis, it means we are trying to identify the difference or variation between what the person should be able to do and what the person can do. Now, when we say what the person should be able to do, it is the competency framework that defines and determines what the person should be able to do. So when we say somebody has some developmental needs or some gaps, it is also vis-a-vis the competency framework. Last but not the least, when we talk about career development, competency framework helps employees and HR and management to guide employees towards career paths, leveraging on their competencies and allowing them to develop new roles. So if, for example, you want to guide an employee to become a C-suite. C-suite means C-level, chief operating officer, chief technical officer, chief human resource officer, and so on and so forth. There are even competencies associated with the C-suite. There are competencies associated with executive management. There are competencies associated with management, maybe from manager or assistant manager, senior manager. There are also competencies associated with supervisory roles. There are competencies associated with team management, and so on and so forth. So you see that competency framework is actually fundamental and it is critical. It is something every HR professional, irrespective of our level, whether you're an officer, supervisor, manager, executive, should be very familiar with. Now, forging ahead, when we talk about competency framework, this is an example, and I am intentionally showing an example from the beginning. We'll still come back to this example at the end of the day. But just to speak very quickly to this example here, you can see competency. If you are following me, you will see the cursor moving. So these are examples of competencies, for example. And as a case study, we have chosen talent acquisition as the role. Now, you will see what are some of the competencies required to be a competent or capable talent acquisition person, professional. For example, recruitment process, sourcing, candidate assessment, interviewing, candidate experience, employer branding, compliance, data analysis, stakeholder management, continuous improvement. Of course, this is not exhaustive. Now, there are 4 categories of competencies that I have defined. Note, this is my own construct. So some other organization may have, for example, instead of 4 levels, may have 5 levels. Some may have 3 levels. Some may have 7 levels. So don't be fixated and think this is, so to speak, the only way to do it. But this is how I do it because it works for me. And it has helped in organizations where I've worked. Now, a competency means capacity to do something. Follow me carefully. So what's the first competency here? Recruitment process. Now, you will agree with me that there are various levels of doing anything. So at the most fundamental level is what I call basic level. So basic can be anything from 0 to very minimal. So maybe if you hire an intern or an entry level, that will be basic. Then you can also have someone who is no longer basic, has some level of proficiency, if I can use that word. I'll call it intermediate level. Then when you are good, generally everybody confirms, certifies, your line manager appears that you are good, then we have proficiency level. Then when you are like a don, permit me to use colloquial language, when we say you are the oga at the top, and when I say oga at the top now, I'm not speaking about your hierarchy in the organization. No, I'm speaking about, you can be an officer, and everybody will know that when it comes to Excel, this is a guru. So that's what I mean by oga at the top here, mastery level. So moving on, just to show the same example, but in a slightly different way. So you will see this example here. I move from basic to intermediate to proficient to mastery. Here, I substituted those category of competence or those mastery level and replaced them with tenure. Entry level, 0 to 2 years. Mid-level, 3 to 5 years. Senior level, 6 to 8 years. Leadership level, 9 years and above. Let me also say this, especially because of the slightly more junior professionals on this call. Don't take it hook, line, and sinker that this is the absolute categorization of levels. Some organizations can say their own entry level is 0 to 3 years, or 0 to 4 years, or 0 to 18 months. So it's not cast in stone. Depends on the organization, it depends on the industry, please. All right. And mid-level 2 does not necessarily have to be 3 to 5 years. It can be 3 to 6 years. It can be 3 to 7 years. It can even be 2 to 4 years. So don't get fixated. But this, again, is just an example. You can play around it based on your organization and industry. And again, I'm trying to show us here that generally speaking, the level of mastery, so it is not unusual if somebody at entry level, 0 to 2 years, is on the basic level. It should not be unusual if somebody at mid-level, 3 to 5 years, is at intermediate level or higher. Now, you should not be a senior level, 6 to 8 years, and you are not proficient. And proficient is almost like 90% in my own estimation. Then you should not be at leadership level and not be mastery. At least there will be certain things that you will be mastery at. Let me also quickly say at this intersection, using this example, you will see here, starting from recruitment process as an example of the competence and continuous improvement as another example, you will see that this is about 10 competencies. So it is very impossible, and this is typically the reality, that, so let's take an example. Let's assume Oluyemi Adeosun, let me use my name as the example, is the employee. It is possible that Oluyemi Adeosun can be at proficient level with recruitment process, but with sourcing, it can be at basic level. Then the same Oluyemi can be a master at candidate assessment, and then can be a master at interviewing. Then a candidate experience, it can be basic. What do I mean? Maybe Oluyemi Adeosun knows how to interview, but is the type that will keep candidates waiting for 2 hours. Is the type that after interviewing the candidate, 1 month, 2 months, is not going to send a mail to them, notifying them of the status. So I'm just trying to show that you will see here that people, the same person, can be on different level of mastery or accomplishment or capacity, competence on different associated skills or competencies within the body. So everything together like this is a framework. It's not left for you, okay, to now say, for example, perhaps I should have done this, thinking about it right now. For example, you could associate weight to each of the competencies. So you can say recruitment process, 5, sourcing, 5, candidate, 5, interviewing, 5, candidate experience, 5, until you get to continuous assessment, improvement, 5. So if somebody is on basic level on recruitment, what would you score in? 1. If the person is on intermediate level, you score the person 2/5, proficient level 3/5, mastery maybe 5/5. You will now do the same for all the, what do you call it now, in the unique competencies, and then everything will total to a maximum of 100. I've gone ahead of myself, but it's good. I've gone ahead of myself, but it's very good. Now, if everything totals to 100, you can say that for a specific role, the candidates, either internal candidate or external candidate, must clock or must get score 70/100 or 80/100 or 90/100, depending on the seniority, depending on the skill set and capacity. Okay, moving on. So we will take 1 or 2 steps backward now, and we'll still come back to this table. I just wanted to show us our goalpost, so that when we are now doing our movement, we will know why we are going there and where we are going. Now, competency framework, okay? So it's a systematic structure. So we are moving away from competency to competency framework, okay? So that we are trying to unmodel and simplify and also get us to understand the intricacies. Competency frameworks are systematic structures, emphasis on systematic, okay, that define competencies required for organization in specific, okay, roles or at various levels within the organization. This framework provides a comprehensive overview of the knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors that individuals need to demonstrate to perform their job effectively. Perform their job effectively. Key aspects of competencies include, let's break it down. 1, structured set of competence. That's what I was demonstrating and explaining just a few minutes ago. Competency framework consists of predetermined set of competencies required to a particular role, function, and so on and so forth. Now, these competencies are identified typically through job analysis and input from subject matter experts. Analysis of the job analysis, and input from. So let me see if we are following each other now. So let's take a job as an example. The job of a front desk officer. Some people call that role a receptionist. In the chat box, I want you to type in no particular order, and as it comes to your mind, just type in the chat box the competencies you think are required for any man or woman to be an effective, efficient front desk executive or receptionist. I'll continue my conversation, but I'll come back to that. So just type whatever comes to your mind in any particular order. The competencies required for a front desk executive. Okay. I want us to use another example that is different from the one I highlighted, which is not an HR role, so to speak. Again, competency framework, are tailored to specific roles or organizational levels. Competency frameworks are customized to align with the requirements of different roles. They reflect the unique demands and expectations associated with each position, ensuring that employees possess the competencies required for the specific job responsibilities. Again, competency framework can also be linked with the hierarchy. When we say hierarchy here, it could be the grade, officer, senior officer, manager, and so on and so forth. Different organizations and industries have different grades, but hierarchical structure means from entry level to executive director or managing director, chief CEO, all right? And again, you will see that the competency required to be a management trainee. At management trainee level now, you can be looking for skill sets like, is this person trainable? I doubt if anybody will be looking for a senior manager or a director, and in your mind, a core competency will not be, is the person trainable? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I know that no matter what stage of life professionally we are, we should remain trainable, but I'm not sure if you or I am on a panel for a CEO, I doubt if we'll be looking for trainability as a competence. It will just be taken as a given. Of course, if you now see signs of being untrainable, it can now become a red flag of some sort. Then we need to be able to link to the organizational objective. Competency frameworks are designed to align with what strategic objective and priorities of the organization. By identifying the competencies needed to support organizational goals, the framework ensures that employee development efforts are directly relevant to the organizational mission. Now, let me quickly check here. So I asked a question some few moments ago as to what we think are the competencies required to be a front desk executive or a receptionist, as they are called in some organizations. And I see things like effective communication, communication skills. I can see phrases like interpersonal skills. Communication skills seem to, come across a lot. I can see customer service. I can see emotional intelligence. So I'll just call phrases I've not seen. So, okay, I can see computer literacy. Okay, yes. Fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. I can see business or product knowledge, because somebody can enter into your organization and begin to ask the front desk questions immediately. It's not in all instances that the next thing the front desk must do is to say, let me connect you with the department in charge. Okay, let me see here. Fantastic. Ability to multitask, and so on and so forth. So on a lighter note, I've not seen anybody put in this competency that the front desk must be a woman, for example. And I've not seen anybody put in the chat box that the person must be, I wanted to use the word yellow, fair-skinned, light in complexion. Are we together? I've not seen. Because, in quotes, in the very real sense of it, those are not competencies. Even though you may see it play out in certain organizations when they will keep meeting candidates, and just because the lady is not light-skinned, the MD will be saying, no, no, no. You may not know until you get a light-skinned person that meets the requirement, they will now say yes, which in itself is not a compensable factor, a determinant of success on the job. Competency frameworks, like I mentioned, knowledge, skills, abilities, behavior, they serve as blueprints for individuals to excel in the role. So if we don't do a good job with identifying the core competencies and defining the core competencies, anybody we hire based on a faulty competency framework will not excel on the job. So it will even lead to what we call recruitment errors. Okay, so the framework again encompasses both technical and behavioral. Okay, so it's multi-level. Some may be technically sound and behaviorally deficient, and that can lead to serious performance gaps. Okay, all right. Now, one thing is important. Sometimes some of us assume, or some organizational leadership assumes, when you try to introduce things like competency framework, some leaders are afraid. They think, oh, once we have the competency will be rigid. No. You see, because we have a framework doesn't mean, so to speak, we are now enslaved to the framework. Even the framework is something that maybe every year or every 2-3 years, or as occasion demands, we may need to tweak. Let me give an example. When many organizations in this part of the world were not doing hybrid or flexi or remote at all, certain things were not necessarily a competence required for the job. But immediately, some organizations started doing flexi, remote work, additional things or competencies came to play. So maybe they had 12 competencies for certain roles before. Because of the remote or flexi component, maybe it moved from 12 to 15. So don't This we may add, we may also delist or delete as the case may be. So competency frameworks are characterized by flexibility to accommodate diverse roles and evolving organizational need. And some of the ways the flexibility can, play out. One is customization. Okay, competency frameworks can be tailored to meet the specific needs of the different departments, functions, business unit, or even geography. There are some skill sets that, for example, in Lagos, you may need one or two. So let me use one street language now. If you know the technical term, you can give it to me in the chat box. So, if you are in sales and you are working in a place like Mushin, Oshodi, what's the name of this place now? Alaba. There's a kind of street sense you have to have. If you know the technical term for that street sense, please drop it in the chat box. But if you are maybe working in Ikoyi, VI, in some certain places in other parts of the country, you may not need to be rugged. You may not need to have that street sense, so to speak. So, which means if you are hiring for the role for Lagos, maybe ability to manage or money may be a core competence. But if you are maybe in Abuja, that may not be of any value. So you may have the same role, but in two different geographic locations, and the competency requirements will be slightly different. So, of course, some things will be core to the two, but one can be 13 competencies, the other can be 15, to accommodate for the peculiarity of the geography. Again, I'm trying to show so that we are not just rigid. Okay, thank you, Olamide. He says ruggedity and resilience. Thank you so much for that. All right. So apart from customization, okay, based on maybe different departments, different functions, different business units, different geographies or territories. If, for example, you move the same role from Nigeria to Ghana, one or two things, there could be some cultural sensitivities that may also come to play. Thank you, CN. CN says street smart. Thank you. Competencies too must be scalable, scalability, okay, to accommodate organizational growth or changes in the workforce. For example, if you work in an organization that is a startup, some organizational startup grew very fast. 2 years later, the startup may almost be like a medium-sized company. So the framework must be scalable. They can be adapted to incorporate new roles, new technologies, new industry trends, ensuring they remain effective in addressing evolving organizational needs. Then agility, agile. Competency frameworks enable organizations to respond quickly to changes in the business environment by adjusting competency requirements as needed. This agility, of course, allows organizations to stay ahead of the curve and remain competitive in an ever-evolving market. Last but not the least here is continuous improvement. So competency frameworks are not static documents. So if, for example, a few of us will always say, oh, give me template. Let's say you get the template from your friend working in another organization. Please, you need to look at it, what you have gotten from that friend critically, vis-a-vis your organizational vision, your organizational values, your business plan, your short-term, medium-term, and long plan. You understand? Don't just say, oh, Oluwemi Adeosun gave me a template. Therefore, it is law, not at all. Even if you hire consultants, the best of the best, they developed a competency for you. Year in, year out, you still need to relook it and rework the competencies because of the changing things. So again, it's very important that you align employee skills with organizational goals. And your competency framework is one of the tools that helps you to align your employee skills, capabilities, and channel it, focus it. So you need clarity and focus. Define competencies required for various roles. Employees understand what is expected of them and can focus their effort on developing relevant skills. Then there's what we call strategic alignment. Competency frameworks are designed to reflect the strategic objective of the organization. By identifying the competencies required for success, organization can do what? Ensure their workforce possesses the skills needed to achieve strategic goals. Again, talent management, okay? Competency facilitates effective talent by providing a basis, I've said, alluded to this earlier, a basis for what? Recruitment, a basis for performance management, a basis for our learning and development, our training plans. This can enable HR professionals to identify high potential employees, okay, skill gaps, and support career progression. Then consistency and fairness. So it's not when it is Oluyemi, is X, when it is Sandra, it is Y. No, that framework enables us to be fair, to be just, to be what? To be consistent, because there is a clear criteria. It's not, oh, we attend the same church. Oh, we are both Yorubas. Oh, we sat in the north together. No, it's not all those trivial, non-consequential parameters. And of course, adaptability. So what are significance of developing and applying this framework? Because sometimes if you don't really get the reason, you may not be motivated enough to do the legwork, the brain work, and apply the time and resources to develop it. Okay, so developing and applying competency framework is important for the following reasons: competitive advantage, okay, employee engagement, because you attract the right people, you are able to retain them, you are also able to train them effectively. Organizational agility, strategic decision making, enhanced performance. Okay, now to what some of you will, in quotes, like to know. What are some of the key steps in developing a competency framework? I will spend some time hovering around this module in this training intervention. First and foremost, okay, strategic alignment. Align the framework with the organization's overall strategy and business goals. You must identify the competencies needed to achieve those goals. Now, so that we're not just speaking English or grammar. So if mention any organization, what are their core goals? Now, let me give you a few generic core goals, For example, it can be increase in revenue. For example, it can be increase in profitability. Again, for another organization, it can be increase in market share. For some organizations, it can even be reduction in cost. Are we together? I just mentioned 4 generic goals. Most organizations play around with this one. They can call it anything. Some will now even be very specific. You can hear something like increase revenue by 23%. Or some will say it's $5 billion in terms of new markets. Those kind of things. Excuse me. So once you know those overarching goals, you can now do strategic alignment, because if you must hit 5 billion in terms of revenue in new it's like, okay, ability to close deals, and you'll be able to now synthesize and say, on a very high level, what are the key competencies without even looking at a specific role now. I mean, organizational competence and capability that is needed to deliver on these big goals. So, as I was saying, if you are expanding into Anglophone and Francophone, suddenly the capacity to speak French may be a critical competence because you are moving into territories that require a different language. And that will now be something that is very critical and important. Again, competence identification through surveys, job analysis, workshops, things to determine the specific knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors required for the role. Then you need to now know the competency levels. The competency levels is what I simulated earlier. Okay, please mute. Thank you. Okay, once again, sorry for breaking transmission. Sometimes this network issues just passes. So I'll try and continue with the recording now at this session. Apologies once again. Okay, so this is where we started discussing on the key steps in developing competency framework. 4 main steps here: job analysis, competency identification, framework design, and then validation. And we have started speaking around some of these concepts even prior to now. Talk about job analysis. It's speaking to identifying essential. Okay, so job analysis involves gathering detailed information about the job within the organization. This includes identifying the tasks and responsibilities associated with the role, understanding the qualifications and experience required, and determining the context in which the job operates. Earlier, we were using an example of a front desk executive. I won't mention it, but I know, for example, of a major bank that part of the requirement for their front desk executive is that they must be multilingual. In other words, they must be able to speak French, English, and Arabic, or one or two. We just have to be resilient. Okay, so as part of that particular bank's need, and due to the kind of clients they are targeting and they have exposure and experience to, they also insist, for example, that their front desk or receptionist must have international exposure. So either they've done a program abroad, no matter how briefly, or must have lived abroad, even if it is 1 year, so that they are able to relate with any kind of client. They can engage. So if you're even talking from, where I come from, this is the kind of banking needs I need. When I come to Nigeria, they can quickly connect multiple cultures, multiple scenarios and countries. Now you will say, you mean for a front desk executive or for a receptionist? Of course, in this particular bank I'm talking about, they also pay, if you in quotes here, the salary of those front desks, you say, what? You mean some front desk earn that much? Yes, because of the peculiar skill set that is required. Are we together? So, but you have to do the job analysis so that you can be able to drill down and tease out all the key functions. So from the technical skills, soft skills, the qualifications, and the experience. So as an example, another example here, in a retail setting, conducting a job analysis for a sales associate position may include shadowing the current employees, if it's not a new role, okay, to observe their daily tasks, reviewing their job description, interviewing managers to understand the key responsibility and qualification. This process helps identify the specific activities, skills, and knowledge areas for performing the job effectively. Okay. Next, we move to competency identification, determining the key competencies needed for success. Now, once the job analysis is complete, the next step is to what? Identify the key critical competencies required for this role. This involves pinpointing the knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors that are most closely linked. So, because when you do the job analysis, you may, in some instances, almost get like 50 competencies, but that may be an overkill. You may now want to prune it down to say 15, 10, 20, 18, depending on the nature of the role. Again, for the sales associate position we mentioned in the previous slide, key competencies may include excellent communication skills, customer service orientation, product knowledge, teamwork, and adaptability. These competencies are required, okay, to excel on this task and to be able to deliver on the responsibility that has been identified through the job analysis. Of course, we have to link it with the organizational goals and strategy. Now, speaking to organizational competencies, you now need to put it in a framework design. So you've done the job analysis, you've done the competency identification, then you need to put it in a coherent structure. Okay, this involves categorizing the competencies, collating like terms, putting them together in family groupings, logical groupings, establishing the relationship between the different competencies, and defining proficiency levels or behavioral indicators for each category. Again, in designing the competency framework for the sales associate role, you can group it into customer service skills, that's a family or a body, then product knowledge, that's another family or a body, and then teamwork. Within each category, there are now what? Subcategories, specific competencies that can now be defined along with the observable behavior. So the framework provides a clear structure for assessing and developing the competencies required for success in the role. Okay? Now, the last but not the least is validation. And validation, normal English, to validate, to ensure that this is perfect or near perfect. This is fit for purpose. And it means ensuring the relevance and accuracy of the framework through stakeholder feedback. Stakeholders are, so, I've had instance questions like this in the past or from other fora where they will say, oh, who should do the JD, for example? Is it HR or the line manager? You can extend that question to the competency framework. Who should do the competency framework? Is it HR or the line manager? At the minimum, the two stakeholders should collaborate and partner to do it. The line manager cannot do it alone. Neither can HR do it alone. Sometimes HR might have developed a framework like a template and then give it to line manager to populate, and through an iterative process back and forth, and then you meet together, maybe a committee, and then you review, and you can then have like some form of assurance, and then you validate it. So the final step, okay, in development process is to validate the competency framework to ensure that it accurately reflects the requirement of the job and aligns with organizational goals. Now, this will be at a particular date or period. So let's say you do it in December 2023. 1 year later or 2 years later, you may need to meet again and recalibrate, because there might have been some changes in the industry, some changes in the organization, changes in regulation, or changes in the market. Are we together? So this involves seeking feedback from relevant stakeholders. So even the employees themselves, for those who are already your staff, of course, you can't do that for an external candidate, but people are already in. You just don't say, oh, come and sign this, your competency framework. You also want to engage them as a team to say, oh, this is the framework we've put together. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Any concerns? Any observation? And you listen actively and you take notes, because there will be some things they will say that will be very useful, and you will use it to update and enrich the document. They may say some things emotionally, but you shall take notes, but you may not necessarily do anything, or you provide them with feedback and enlighten them as to, and sometimes some of the areas that can lead to debates can be the level of proficiency. When I say levels of proficiency now, you can say something should be intermediate. They will say, no, it should be basic. You can say something should be mastery. They will say, no, it should be proficient. Do you understand? So sometimes it may not be, the debate may not be, is this skill set or competency required? It could be to what extent. So you need to know that. So maybe if you say customer service orientation, and you say, oh, for this role, the customer service orientation should be at mastery. Some of the employees can say, no, mastery is too much. Oh, intermediate is okay. Oh. So it's to have data, facts, and figures and information, to get people to come to the realization, the justification, the substantiation of why the competency and the extent of the competency is required for the role. Again, there are different roles in different grades, maybe for an officer or for a supervisor or for a manager. For example, to validate the competency framework for the sales associate position, HR professionals may conduct focus groups or surveys with current employees and managers to gather feedback on the relevance and clarity of the competencies identified. They may also analyze performance data or conduct job simulations to assess how well the framework predicts the job performance. Based on this feedback and validation results, adjustments may be made to the framework to ensure its accuracy and effectiveness in guiding the talent management practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you earlier that we are going to come back to this particular table, and we are back. We started from it, and we are back to the table. And again, just to reiterate, this is not like this is the only way it can be done, or this is the most perfect way it can be done. No, this is just for the purpose of our conversation tonight. It can be more complicated, and it can even be less complicated, as the case may be. So you see competencies here. The competencies range from recruitment process down to continuous improvement. And the role we are looking at here is the role of what? Talent acquisition. Now, you can have a talent acquisition intern. You can have a talent acquisition officer. You can have a talent acquisition specialist. You can have a talent acquisition manager. Now, these are what? 4 levels of talent acquisition. Just to make it simple, in reality, it may not be this direct, but just for the purpose of this conversation, we can say that if you're hiring somebody as a talent acquisition intern, the person should be what? Basic all through. In other words, recruitment process, person just have basic understanding. In sourcing, it should assist in what? Sourcing candidates. It should also conduct initial screening. It can participate in interview, and so on and so forth. Then the officer can be what? Intermediate level. And all the responsibilities associated with intermediate, from execute recruitment task for recruitment process up to identify area of organizational improvement, optimization for continuous improvement. Are you with me? Then the third category, which is more senior, which is a talent specialist. And by the time we say you're a talent specialist, you must be able to, for recruitment process, you must be able to manage end-to-end recruitment process, all things being equal. Up to, for example, stakeholder management, which means you should be able to influence stakeholders to support HR initiative. You can see that. Influence means you can convince, you can change their mind. Again, the last but not the least example here is the talent acquisition manager, who for the purpose of this engagement we say should be operating at what? At the mastery level. With respect to recruitment process, design and implement recruitment strategies, sourcing, pioneer innovative sourcing method. You can see now that the level of dexterity is, so you can't just say you're a talent manager and you can source, and we say how do you source, and the only way you can mention is LinkedIn, we advertise in the newspaper. No, we want to. So if you are conducting an interview for 4 potential candidates, and each of these candidates are on these 4 levels: talent acquisition intern, talent acquisition officer, talent acquisition specialist, talent acquisition manager, and we are asking them questions around recruitment process. We can ask the same question, but when we are analyzing their responses to the question, we'll be looking at, is this person responding at a basic level, intermediate level, proficient level, or mastery level? I hope I'm making sense. So, as I begin to come home to wrap up this conversation, we all know that the reality is that you cannot have a talent manager who will be at mastery level on recruitment process, will be on proficient level on sourcing. With respect to interviewing, can be at mastery. With respect to candidate experience, can be at basic because it can be rude, or maybe we'll even be asking questions like, which village are you from? Are you married? You know, those kind of things. And that can have negative impacts on candidate experience. And so you can say that particular manager. So at the end of the day, if the person is at mastery across board, it will be 100 over 100. But because of certain gaps and deficiencies in one area or the other, it may be, for example, at 80 or 85. So our cutoff to move a talent specialist to a talent manager can be. So again, we can say if we rate anybody on this grid for talent intern, maybe 50% is the benchmark. For officer, maybe 60%. For specialist, maybe 70%. For manager, 80%. So if today we have a talent specialist who is eyeing promotion to talent manager, so in addition to maybe having done a minimum of 18 months or 2 years on the role, if we do an assessment on all these competency areas we have identified and that he or she is aware of, and they go through the assessment interview, they must be able to score 80. Otherwise, they are not yet ready for talent acquisition manager role. So I'm trying to also show us how you are using this same competency framework for recruitment on one hand, and then for performance management, for career management, and for growth. Again, you can maybe look at an individual and run them through a process, and then you identify the gap, and then you now come up with the training intervention. So do you want somebody to go and undershadow somebody? Do you want somebody to do a job rotation to a particular desk for 3 months? So where they will be forced to build competencies at certain levels on certain functionalities, and so on and so forth. This is still the same example, but this time, instead of using basic, intermediate, proficiency, and mastery, I'm now putting the years, 0 to 2, mid-years, 3 to 5, senior level, 6 to 9, and then taking it to the uppermost leadership level, 9 years. Again, don't forget, these are just hypothetical examples. Your range in your organization may be narrower or may be wider, depending on some organizations. They will say, if you never do 25 years, you can't enter leadership level. If you know, you know. But I hope you don't have a plenty Gen Z in your quarters, because if you can't show them a way to the top quickly, they may, transition to other organizations. So when we look at our talent acquisition coordinator, which is the title for the entry level of our talent acquisition role, the person we expect to be between 0 to 2 years, we say he should focus on learning and supporting recruitment, sourcing, and basic candidate assessment. You will see that part of their role is for learning. Then when we go to the talent acquisition specialist, who is someone with 3 to 5 years experience, we say must be able to independently execute recruitment processes, conduct assessment, contribute to employer branding, and so on and so forth. Then when we come to the senior talent acquisition specialist or recruitment manager, where say here the person must be able to manage recruitment strategies, develop candidate experience strategies, and ensure compliance. You can see, so to speak, the more complicated the outcomes and the competencies and the deliverables are, also as the person's year of experience is wider, which we also, in quote, all things being equal, ceteris paribus, equate to being able to do more. And then last but not the least, the head of talent acquisition or HR director, who should be able to lead organizational recruitment strategies, design frameworks, drive continuous improvements in the HR workplace. So what are the benefits? They are obvious. It will help us to improve our hiring decisions, attract and select candidates with the right skills and behaviors for the job, therefore lowering or reducing our attrition rate. It will help us enhance our performance management, provide a clear and objective basis of performance evaluation and feedback, help us to focus on training efforts aimed at closing competency gaps and developing desired skills. Okay, it helps us to offer a clear path for career development and skill. So people know they are not just saying, oh, I want to become director, I want to become manager. They know what to do, what they must have to become or attain those levels. And through your internal LMS, learning management system, the training opportunities, and then they may also send themselves on specific trainings because they've seen the requirements and they are consciously working on it. Also, it helps to create a common language for discussing skills and expectations. So when a line manager and a direct report, when they're having conversations, it's not in the air. The reference point and the benchmark is the same. It also helps to identify future skill needs and develop strategies to address them. Let me also quickly add there, I've worked in places and I know colleagues HR where they have this document, this competency framework, but the staff don't have access to it. In other words, only the HR knows the competency framework. Even the line managers don't have it, or the employees. For me, I don't think this is good practice or best practice or reasonable practice. I don't know why sometimes we like to conceal certain information. Some HRs that I've asked, they will say, every staff have it. They can share it with competition. I'm like, hello, some things, the risk, if shared with competition, what you will lose is not as significant as what you will gain if your staff have access to it. At least where they are with you, they will trust you. There is transparency. At least if they are reasonable, because they know the benchmark, they can also judge vis-a-vis the benchmark. There won't be insinuation of why did they promote Mr. A over Mr. B, because the requirements are visible for all to hear. Again, of course, it's not a bed of roses. Challenges in implementing competency framework, time and resource investment, especially if you are doing it for the first time. Yes, and this is where some of our colleagues, say, oh, template, do it yourself. When you do it yourself, that first time, it does something for you and to the team members that participate in it. You can always recreate it anywhere, anytime. And then one thing templates do sometimes, especially if you go and get the wrong template, is that it wires you with what's the word now? It unlocks your creativity. So when you do your job design by yourself or with consultants, and so even if your organization is brilliant enough and you are paying consultants to do it, please work with them. Don't just rest and give them and they come back. Don't say they have paid them for the work. Romance with them, in quote now, as in be in bed with them. Let your hands be dirty. Don't care who is getting the money. So that, because that way you'll be able to guide them. Don't forget, consultants who can sometimes, not intentionally, guide you, especially if you don't give them the right information timely. But when you are vested, when you are invested in it, you will ask questions, you'll be rigorous, you'll be able to help them streamline, and you'll be able to. So, time and resource investment, maintaining alignment, which is very key, is not always easy because sometimes things need to be reviewed and updated regularly to reflect changes in. So, which means even you yourself must understand the business of the business and the industry. Then sometimes, ensuring consistency in how competencies are evaluated across different managers is critical and crucial. Limited scope. Competency framework may not capture aspects of a successful employee, such as cultural fit, or in some instances, certain soft skills and exposure. Okay, so as we coast home, as we wrap up here, what are some of the best practices for applying competency frameworks? Leadership buy-in is key. Engage with your CEO, your C-suite, because once they are co-drivers in that project with you, They'll be able to rein in any manager or department that is not cooperative. For example, maybe you tell people that you create a template and say they should populate it maybe for information, for job analysis. A line manager can begin to tell you something like, what is this one again? HR has started again. You need leadership buy-in. So securing leadership support and active involvement in the development and implementation process is key. You need to communicate the framework to all employees and provide training on how to use it. Very, very important. You can't allow for opacity. You also need to integrate with HR software and technology where you have it, depending on the ones you have. Okay. Regularly review and update the framework. So some people to have this challenge. So they had a framework 15 years ago, and they are using that same framework, maybe because they paid a tier 1 consultant. Either you call them to come and rejig for you, or you do the work and rejig it. So make sure that it is current, it is live, and it is relevant. So you need to refresh it. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Competency Frameworks offers valuable tool for HR professionals to improve talent management practice and drive organizational success. All right. Consider the benefit, challenges, and best practice outlined so that you can add value. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a few questions, and I also like to take plenty contributions. So if you like to maybe share your thoughts or experience, or you want to ask a question, the floor is yours. All you need to do is raise your hands. I will unmute you and you speak. And if you prefer to drop a chat, please type away and we'll quickly read your chat. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I apologize for the network issues. It's part of those technology glitches. Thank you for joining us tonight. So I see one, and please raise your hands quickly, please. Jennifer Atini, please, you have the floor for your contributions, please.
Good evening. Thank you for the very informative session. It's been really mind-opening. But my question is in the implementation of your competency framework. So I have a scenario where I have an organization with people at different proficiency levels. So my question is, do you design a different appraisal form for each competency band based on the expected the basic level of expectation in terms of the competencies of each competency band? Do you do that so that when you're appraising them at the end of the day, someone who is basic is not appraised as though they should be proficient? So the appraisal process is fair. Because in my organizations, what I observed is sometimes you are on the intermediate level, but because your appraisal form is the same form with the person who is proficient, it becomes unfair to you because you're on intermediate level. You're not supposed to operate as a proficient person. So why should you be using the same parameters for me? So it has always bothered my mind that is it that it will probably mean a lot of extra work, but would it be fair to then group everyone into competency bands and then design specific appraisal forms for those bands?
Thank you so much, Jennifer. First and foremost, let me say that I like your question. And one of the reasons I like your question is it speaks to the reality in many organizations today. I also like your question because it shows me that clearly you follow today's presentation, and it gladdens my heart. Thank you for that question. There is no easy answer to it. However, let me say this. You see, competency framework is like almost everything in HR is not standalone. It's intertwined, intricately intertwined with other HR domains. So now, what your question now is looking at the link between competency framework and performance management framework.
Yeah.
So these are two frameworks, but the competency framework feed into the performance management framework. So you can have a robust competency framework, but your performance management framework, the way you are managing it, may make a mockery or a mess of the competency framework. Now, let me now go to the solution for you. You alluded to it when you said more work. That's more work. That is why, especially in organizations that are reasonably big, you understand? I'm not talking about maybe where you are 30, 50, where you're reasonably big. That's why it doesn't help when you have a one-man HR team where that same person is doing everything, because you will know what to do, but you may never have the time and the depth and breadth to get it done. Now to the solution. When we come to the place of KPIs, when you set the KPIs, the annual KPIs for each employee, in addition to the targets, there should be like a column to say how we will measure the target. That's how will we measure the targets using my example today, my own words today. When I say words today, you will not determine, for example, is it basic? Is it intermediate? Is it proficient? Is it advanced? Now, in the target, let's use sales, which is easy and relatable for this conversation. So if it's mastery, the target for a sales manager can be 100 billion naira. Then for the proficient, it can be 70 million. For the intermediate, it can be 30 billion. For the basic, it can be 10 million. I'm using numbers so that you can see how it is different. Then if, for example, you have something like maybe leadership, maybe for the HR manager, you can have something like ensure zero industrial disputes. In other words, manage the union that they don't go on strike. You cannot put for an HR officer, manage the union that they will not go on strike. Why? To manage the union that will not go on strike is at mastery or proficient level. Someone who is an officer who is operating at a basic or beginner level cannot have, but you cannot have something like, I'm just thinking of this solution as we are thinking as I'm engaging with you, so it may not be very perfect. But for the HR officer now, when it comes to industrial relations, you could have something like 100% record keeping of the minute of meeting. Because to take note and minute is basic. So I agree with you. The solution is to make sure that once the KPIs are agreed by all stakeholders, there are ample examples of how we will measure it. And how we will measure it should mirror whether it is mastery or it is basic. Please confirm if I've been helpful somewhat.
Yes, you've been helpful. Yes. You've just confirmed to me that it's going to be a lot of work. And it's not
Absolutely.
just one brain that can handle it, especially in an organization that has different specialties like a finance division, an audit division and all of that. So thank you very much. Thank
you, Jennifer. So I should call Chioma next, but I'll go to Fola. So Chioma, don't be angry. I suspect that Fola wants to help me answer the first question. So I'm coming back to Chioma, please. Don't be angry, okay? So Fola, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeosun. This is very wonderful. And the funniest thing is that because of the way organization is going now, there is need for alignment between that competency framework, performance, organizational development, and what have you, because the alignment is very, very key. And to answer that question, I think from before we even get to competency framework or even performance, there is usually a job analysis for every organization. And this is where all of these things flow from. They flow from that job analysis. And the question is that how many organizations as we speak right now have that job analysis document? How many organizations? Some of these analysis documents or even, majority have JDs, they can easily come up with JDs, but there is a source where those things come out from. Somebody did the analysis of the job And from there, they begin to bring out the JDs, bring out the job specification. And from there, they move into competency framework that we are talking about. Then from competency framework, you move to performance. And you use all of this together to do something about your organizational development. Then you move into succession plan. So let me quickly answer that question. If you do your competency framework very well, and you can easily marry it with your JD and determine your performance, and it will be very easier for you. Like what Mr. Adeosun just said now, you already have it from your entry level to basic to, it depends on the one that your organization really wants to use, how you want to spread it, the competency area, how you want to spread it. But the most important thing is that the way you will measure performance for entry level will be different from mid-level, even to the top, higher, those executive management level. It will be very different. And that is why I won't lie to you, when you get your performance right and competency framework right, and you are always updating it, then your performance, your KPI will be very easy. Although we also know that KPI has something to do with the general organization at large, which has to do with whether your scorecard or your OKR, or it depends on anyone that you are using. But the most important thing is that that competency framework play a major role in the performance. And from there, if moved to succession planning, then from there, you are doing something around aligning all of them for organizational development. And another thing that is very, very important in all of these competency framework is the stakeholder management within because it's not something you can do alone. And that is why you are thinking that it might be too difficult. And let me tell you why it's not going to be too difficult if you really want to do it. All you need to do is identify all the value chain of your organization. Just like the way we have all the value chain in HR. So your organization have all the value chain. And who are the major stakeholders in those areas? So all you need to do is work with them. You create a particular framework for all of them, probably Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, create something for all of them. Then give them a template, have an engagement with them. If possible, run a KSS with them. This is all we want to do. Then once you do it, then send those documents with them, because they are the one. I won't lie to you. If you are using the eyes of HR to do it from here, it might be a bit difficult for you. So what do? Once you run your KSS, this is what we want to do, then tell them they should prepare that document and send to you. Because if you come to L&D now, where I am working, you can't be, let's assume that we are not together in HR. You can't be in HR and we are separate from you, and you will know the way our value chain, and how we determine our competencies. So they are the one that determine, this is for entry level, this is for this is for that, this is for this. So once they run it, they can send it to you. So at the central level, you can start compiling them. However, there is a general organizational competency framework that you have to prepare for everybody, which is so general. You can work on that. Then they work on it. Then they go to their division based on their own SME or their business unit area. They create it and they send it back to you. So if you really want to do it, that stakeholder engagement is the key for doing it. Then if you have your job analysis, fine. If you don't have it, then engage them. You can even, from there, you can even go back to your job analysis and update or create another one. So competency framework is the key for all of them. Very, very key for all of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for providing additional insights with respect to the question. Choma, thank you for holding. You now have the floor.
Okay, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for such an impactful, well thought through presentation. And so for me, presently, I'm working on this competency framework I'm doing it for a particular department, and I've done for customer service. So customer service is a unit in a department. So department is service management center. That's what we call it. It's an ICT company. So I've already developed it and sent to the head of HR in my company. But So she pointed out something. So when it comes to competency and proficiency, so of course, customer service is, answer calls. And so they have the basics, So, but I found it hard to, by the time we start going into, okay, so for the first level and intermediate, it was okay, fine. But she had a problem with the mastery level. I think you had a 4 framework because she was saying, how can a manager or a vice president or a director. In fact, as far as she's concerned, it's not supposed to be there. There shouldn't be anything like a manager in customer service. Even if there is, it will just be one person out of the whole lot. So you making a competency framework in it is not something everybody will follow. Everybody in customer service will follow. So I want to see if you can give me more, maybe more insight on that. What's your thoughts? I hope you understood my.
So just hang on there. Let's have a short tete-a-tete. So is the bone of contention the fact that there's no need to do competency framework for maybe customer service manager role since
No,
it's
there
just
is.
one person?
No, it's not one person. It's a team. But what she's saying is, so when it comes to now the proficiency, so something like using being conversant with CRM, that's customer service tools. So what are you going to say for someone at the mastery level? Because by intermediate level, you should be able to be conversant, or you should be able to have mastered the use of the tools. So what will
Okay.
be, do you understand? So what will now be the mastery in that particular?
I'll give you something that can be part of the mastery. So
Okay.
at mastery level for CRM, you should be able to work with the IT to create add-ons to the CRM itself.
Okay.
Not everybody should be able to do that. So let me give you an example. Imagine they say you should do, let's assume that today you don't have like a chat box, not this Sam, Flexi, all these funny names. Can you work with the IT team to develop a chat box? That's mastery. Yes.
Okay. And that's now software, as in you're now entering into software application, as in you're becoming.
Exactly. Even if you are not the one coding, you should be able to engage with the IT team and guide them through a process to code add-ons to the CRMs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. That was.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay,
all right. So I don't see any more hands up, but I'll quickly go through the chat just to see. I suspect to have a few questions there. So someone here says, sorry, I'm just going through. Okay, so Gloria says, how can the challenges of implementing a competency framework be dealt with, especially when the rules are flouted by senior management? So this is a question we always get in almost all the sessions. No matter what we are discussing, who is facilitating, there's this question of senior management flouting rules and therefore not allowing HR to optimize. And that is why stakeholder management will always be key. And in addition to stakeholder management, let me also say this. Before you join any organization, try and make some basic inquiries. Try and understand the organizational philosophy. It's not in all instances, especially when it comes to senior management, that you can change the organizational philosophy. So if, for example, it's an organization that is not open to change, when you show them data, when you show them information, then if you go, you just work with them for as long as you can, do your best, throw in all your initiatives and suggestions. The one they approve, you run with it cheerfully. The one you don't approve, you save it for another day, another time. So there may be a change of government. Maybe somebody will come and buy the company over, or another new investor will come and it will change the management team, or you will go to another organization that may be slightly more receptive to you. But again, stakeholder management, do you need to train them? do you need to identify a sponsor in the organization that will go out of your way to pally, to befriend, to, so that you can sell your ideas to that sponsor? When he or she sees the value, they will not even be the one to help you sell it. You won't be the face of it. So, there are many ways around some of these things, but just note that sometimes you will not always have your way. All right. Thank you so much, Madam Ajoke Motayo. I see a question here from Alofeoluwa Toba, and he or she, says that with reference to the question on performance analysis, staff rating should be based. Okay, I think this is a contribution, not a question. Staff rating should be based on individual delivery. Okay, let me see here. Companies should design a single form for all staff level, and upon response or during appraisal level will be rated based on their delivery, which will be based on the terms of reference against your KPI and delivery. And also, job position titles are wrong in relation to the duties of the job in some organization. Okay, but what we are saying, I understand what you are saying, Oluwa Toba, but what we are saying is that, when it comes to the measurement of the KPI, at that point, you are talking about the end point, which is what was your performance versus what was the target. Our point of intervention is when we are measuring or determining the target, that the target, for example, for somebody who is basic, should not be linked to the target of someone who is proficient and vice versa. So what you are saying is very valid. Our intervention is at a slightly different portion of the value chain, and it's not at variance with your brilliant contribution. All right. I'd like to, let me just see. Victoria says here, this competency framework, is it for individual, employee, or departmental based? It is multi-tier. What do I mean? The competency framework is for the organization, then it's for the departments and the units, and then it is for the individual. You understand? So it's not an either or question. It is for the organization, then for the department and unit, and for the individual, in that order too. Okay, thank you so much, Albert Chisholm. My brother said, like creating a chart, a flow chart. Bayo Adeniwale says, thank you for the session. Yes, the recording will be shared tonight on all the platforms. All right, let me just quickly check. Adanaya says here, I am a new acting head of unit in my organization. Okay, congratulations, Adanaya. How do you handle a staff that is not really accepting to report to you because we are on the same level before? It is tough. He's not dedicated in delivery tasks to him. So, Adanaya, I have two responses to you. The first one, please go to my YouTube channel, Oluyemi Adeosun. There's a session I facilitated. Okay, the topic is first 100 days in HR. Now, that first 100 days in HR also applies to first 100 days on a new role. I beg you, I invested my life in that session. It will bless you. It has over 2,000 watch already for you to see the acceptability, the quality from public opinion. Meanwhile, to come back to your question, so if you have maybe the next 10 minutes or thereabout, I will take general questions because this evening is a mentorship session. We just had a specific topic that we handled. Okay, so in case you have general questions not directly tied or associated to tonight's topic, I will handle it tonight. We typically shy away on other days to focus. All right, so what I will say, Adana, is that there are two things to it. When two people are at par and one is elevated and the other is being told, or the organogram is now saying report to, depending on the person may feel bitter and sad and think, why did they give her? Why didn't they give me? So you'll get some form of resentment. Now, different people manage those situations differently. Some, they are able to mask their disappointment and quickly move on and say, oh, this is my new boss now, and they align to you. So first and foremost, please remain professional. Document, as in send emails, official means, so that You don't leave a lot of things to conversations that can be denied tomorrow in case you will need to run the person through, in a worst case scenario, a disciplinary process. In a worst case scenario, if continues to flagrantly, disobey organizational instructions and other. That's on one side. Documents. That's on one side. The other thing is, depending on who you are, you can also try to consciously embrace that person. What do I mean? For example, take the person for lunch or breakfast or something. Have a heart-to-heart talk to say, oh, Oluyemi, you are a strong guy, you are competent, you have this is your work ethic and this. But since this transition happened, look, it could have been you or me anyway. That if it was you, I will support you. Now that is me. It doesn't mean I will always be your boss forever. There may be another window tomorrow, and you will be elevated, maybe at par with me or even higher than me. But if you don't adjust your ways, you may rob because other people will be noticing your approach that is less than professional. So don't let it get the best out of you, your performance and your deliverable. Okay, so find a way to have a rapport and engagement with that man or woman. It doesn't mean they will change, but at least have that on record to also show that you try to do something. Thirdly, if maybe I don't know if you have a mentorship system or coaching system in your organization. So if you know somebody like he defers to or he respects or he admires, you can take go to that more senior person, brief the person, and ask that person to intervene. That look, there's nothing personal here. It's not necessarily your fault or his fault that you are now above it, but because you want performance and productivity not to be compromised, you crave for their intervention. Once you have done all that, please don't forget to document so that if it doesn't do well and there needs to be disciplinary process around it, you will have document and evidence. I'm not saying you should set him up, but I'm just saying, because sometimes some people will be recalcitrant and they will now almost want to turn to a stumbling block. And what will happen to you if you are not careful is the work you are supposed to assign to him, you will now be doing it yourself or be giving it to people lower than him who may not have the depth of technical competence to do it well. Okay. I hope I've been helpful. So let me quickly take Gloria, then we'll take Dr. Fola Vincent very briefly. Gloria, if you are ready, you can unmute, please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone, once again. So I raised my hand because I relate to that question. In fact, it happened of recent. But the lady in question is strong-headed. So when you rose up the option of calling the person to have a conversation, maybe over lunch and all, this what I'm trying to say into that option is it depends on the person's personality. This person in question, now from my own example, is strong-headed. I can't even have a normal conversation with her without maybe having to argue or maybe gradually leading to altercation or she verbally telling me I am not going to go by your rules or something. So what I did in my own time was to speak with a senior management staff that, oh, this is what I'm going through and this person has not been compliant, and they referred me to sending an official email to that effect. So I see that has been working from time to time. If I send a mail, I put those people in copy so that she's not seeing it as just me and her conversation, but those people are in copy as well. And she's also adhering to instructions given. So I don't know if this will also help to the question raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very valuable contribution. Very useful. All right. So we'll take the last input today. Dr. Fola Vincent. So you can speak. I've enabled you to speak, Dr. Fola.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Deoshun, our prof and mentor. That question I will answer in two ways. I know you have answered it, and also I think Shioma to have answered it. And the reason I raised up my hand is because I don't want us to see that once they put me in a position, I automatically become the boss and start exercising influence on the person we used to be on the same level immediately. Now you need to know what happened at that particular stage. I'm talking as a psychologist, and that may be what is happening. You are in the same power with somebody, then suddenly the person begin to report with you. What you are going to be managing in the first 2-3 months will be the emotions attached to what has just happened. So what it means is that in the next 1, 2, 3 months, you might be patient along the way and use the answer provided by, how do I put it, by Mr. Adeosun and also Sherman about you connecting with the person. And I want you to write this one down. If you don't connect with people, it's going to be very difficult for you to lead them. It doesn't matter whom they are. And the truth of the matter is that the more you put a force on somebody, coercion of somebody, coercion has only one end product, and that is resistance. I don't think that's what we want to do. It doesn't matter whether it's the first month, second, third month, or 6th month. The resistance will begin to come. That is not what you want. What you want is that you want to lead people or manage people that whether they see your presence or not, they are doing what they are doing, not because they are afraid of you, not because you coerce them, but because they felt that, okay, I am doing this because I respect this person and we connect. So, Mr. Dioshun, I will go by your answer technically because you need to find a common ground where you and that person need to talk. And at this stage, it requires creative communication with a lot of empathy. Oh, I understand this. I understand this. And I want, if possible, you can rehearse what Mr. Adeosun said very well. I observe this and I really want us to work. How can I work without you? Who knows, in the next 2 years, 3 years, you might be my leader in another organization and I would love to work with you. This time around, let's prioritize the team. Let's work together. How do you want us to work? Now, the reason I'm telling you like this, because it's happened to me personally. I will not mention the name of the organization. We were put, before I came into the organization, it was on the project. And by the time I came in, they said I should take over the project and lead the person. And after 1 month with her, I realized that she's even good. Why am I coming in? Why are they telling me I should lead her? Why? Why are they doing that? But I realized at the end of the day that she doesn't have the leadership capacity. She's good at the functional level, not at the leadership level. Very good when it comes to functional skills. Very good. But at the leadership level, she can't control that team. She can't lead that team. She can't manage them well. So they need somebody that can do that. So when I came in, so I understand what I came in. Okay, it's leadership. Then the next thing I did during lunch, we talk about it. I usually ensure that we eat together during lunch. And by the time we talk about it, she told me frankly, Fola, I won't pretend that I like it that they brought you and we are leading the team. I have been working on my life for 1 year on this project. And now you just came in. I should be the one. I love it. And before I left that organization, we are best friends though. We are par because I was able to connect with her on that level. However, like Shoma said, if it's too strong-headed, very simple, no question, nothing, make everything formal, send an email, copy the person you report to, it solve your problem. She wouldn't want to violate all those things. Copy, try to put a deadline. Now, there's something that I actually work with that helped me. And I think I learned that like probably 6 or 7 years ago. Although I first learned it 2011, but we didn't make use of it in project management. That is workbook. That's what we call a workbook. So workbook will tell you the tasks you need to perform. It will put the deadline. It will put accountability partner. So if you work by that, okay, it won't see you that it's a force. So what you need to do at the beginning of the week is prepare the workbook, put the deadline, put the output or anything that required as outcome or output, the result of that task, then put it there. Then on Friday, have a meeting together. What have you done? What have you done? However, you are going to be an accountability partner. What it means is that you knew that there is somebody you are still managing his emotion, his ego. If he's not doing 1 or 2 things, you need to get somebody to do it. So you can marry him to somebody or her to somebody that will be an accountability partner with the person. So this is how it works. You work on this project. So if it's not working, another person is working, but you are managing that process, which is not going to be a long-term process. By the time, so at the end of the day, the person will realize that I need to accept this, and you need to understand how it works. Denial, then from there to acceptance. They will definitely accept you. So that's how it works. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fola Vincent. I'd like to thank everyone who joined this session tonight. Your presence is not and will never be taken for granted. Thank you to everyone who made a contribution, asked a question, and thank you for staying even when we had some technical issues. Please, let's enjoy the rest of the night and let's enjoy the rest of the weekend. So thank you for joining. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.